I did look at the sales that have occurred so far this year, and it's still showing an escalating real estate market.
All right, Stephen White, thanks for coming into the office to visit today. Summertime's usually a time when a lot of us are thinking about vacations and leaving the office, but for the assessor's office, it's a time of getting some work done.
It is, Ross. We are in the appeal season now. The window has closed for the vast majority of residential properties. And as has been reported, we have about 4,000 appeals this year. And in comparison to last year, that is higher than last year. However, by no means is it a record-breaking year for us either.
So I was going to ask you, historically, what does the 4,000 appeals look like?
Well, we have 240,000 residential properties in the county. 4,000 is a small percentage. It's actually percentage-wise in industry standards, it's pretty good. However, as we look back in our history of appeals, like I mentioned before, last year we had around 3,000. However, we have had years where we have had 6,000 appeals. So this is not a year where we have a workload that we can't handle. This is very much so a workload that we can get done in a timely fashion and comply with all the statutory requirements that our office is required to meet.
So I filed an appeal. I'm waiting on some word from your office. What's going to happen next?
Sure, good question. So the timeline on appeals is our Board of Assessors will act on those first. We will make a decision based on staff recommendation as to if the appeal value should be changed or not. And we normally have a final decision on those by early fall. If the taxpayer is still unhappy or the Board of Assessors does not change the value, then it automatically goes to the Board of Equalization, where your appeal is heard before a 3-member panel. Taxpayer comes in, representative from our office comes in, presents the case before 3 people, and those are usually done by the end of the year. The vast majority of those are usually completed by the end of the calendar year.
So if I filed an appeal, what are the chances I'll be successful historically?
Historically, usually it's around 50%, usually. Sometimes it's a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more, but it hovers around that 50% mark. Last year it was 45%.
And as you mentioned, if I lose my first appeal, I have the second step to take.
That's correct. Going to the Board of Equalization is the next step after the Board of Assessors, and this is where you're present to make your case in regards to what you feel are some factors that go into why you appealed.
And during our last conversation, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you said we're dealing with a record amount of people who saw increases in their assessment? That
is correct, yeah. We did have a record year in regards to increases, and I don't think that comes as a surprise to anybody. The hot real estate market has been very, very publicized. Everybody's aware that real estate is really off and running. Keep in mind that January 1 is the date of valuation, so we look at sales that occur in calendar year 2021 for the assessment notice that was just received in May.
Historically, is there an argument that typically works better than others when it comes to filing an appeal?
There is. I have always recommended to people who file an appeal, the best thing that you can do when you file your appeal is supply information that shows why your value should be changed. So we recommend to people go to our website, look at the sales that occurred in your neighborhood, and again, you want to look for that calendar year 2021 sale, because this is 2022, tax year 2022, is based on the status of the property on January 1st of 2022. So you want to look at 2021 activity, what sales occurred of homes that are similar to yours in your neighborhood. And that should help you arrive at a value that you feel is correct. And if that value is off from what we have, that would be information I would come to the hearing with or email to our office ahead of time. We'll take a look at those sales and we'll determine if the value needs to be adjusted.
And I talk to my neighbors a lot, and there's always a grumbling about paying more taxes, which comes along with a home being assessed at a higher value. But you have reasons why you have to keep the property values at an appropriate level.
That's right. The law says that we have to maintain fair market value on properties, And so therefore, it's our responsibility, because we're appraisers, to put what we feel the property could be selling for on January 1, 2022. So the tax bill doesn't come into play in regards to what my office does. We're looking at what sales occurred in your neighborhood and how do they compare to your house.
And when you talk to your fellow chief assessors in the metro area, what are you hearing from them compared to what you're dealing with?
It's all very, very similar. The real estate market is not just a Cobb County explosion, it's a metro Atlanta explosion. So as I talk with my good friends in Paulding County, Cherokee County, Gwinnett County, Fulton County, DeKalb County, they're experiencing very, very similar numbers, very similar appeal volumes, very similar percentage of increases.
And as you know, when the tax bill goes up, the chair and commissioners tend to get an earful. Does that filter down to you at all? And how do you respond to those concerns?
We do get more email traffic, as is expected this time of the year. And probably the most popular question I get is, why is my property going up that much in 1 year? Or people will say, I'm going to appeal because that's just too much in 1 year. Our responsibility is to put what we feel is the fair market value of the property. Based on the sales that occurred in the prior year, what do we feel your property could be sold for? So I see sometimes people file an appeal based on percentage of increase. In reality, that doesn't help their argument. To be successful in appeal, you want to go find sales in your neighborhood that would support a value lower than what the assessors have.
And you had already touched on this, but I had done this after you had debuted the new website, and you go to cobbassessor.org and look up sales in your neighborhood. It was a real eye-opener for me, and I think it would be for anybody in this market, in this environment, if they did that.
Absolutely, and that's one of the great features about our website is you can go in and customize your sales search based on what type of house you want to look for, your neighborhood, sales date range. You can really customize that search to really find a home that's similar to yours, because sometimes people will go and get the lowest sales in their neighborhood and send those in to us when in reality they have one of the more bigger homes in the neighborhood.
One of the interesting things when you look at the news and what people are covering and talking about is the real estate investing phenomenon that's really branched out across the country. We see it in Cobb. I think I've told you that 2 doors down from me is a home that a investor company had purchased and has been sitting vacant now for several months. How does these companies buying up so many properties in one county like Cobb affect what you do, if at all?
It does add to the appeal volume. Generally, those investment companies do appeal their properties. They don't supply a lot of additional information, so we really don't have anything to go off of that they give us. They just appeal because it's probably part of their business model. But I do see that it does add to our appeal volume, but again, nothing that we can't manage.
So you mentioned they just appeal at a higher percentage rate than typical owners?
I think so. I think that they do that again because it's their business model and they have so many properties and it doesn't cost anything to file an appeal. So I think that they figure, what do we have to lose?
Yeah. So what is your message to folks out there who've filed an appeal and are just waiting on a response?
I would recommend to everybody, again, go to our website, take a look at the data that we have on your property. Does everything look accurate? That's the first step. Because if something's wrong in the data, we can fix that very, very easily, and you don't even have to go through the appeal process all the way. We can fix that in our office. The next thing I recommend to people is go find homes that are similar to yours that have sold within the last calendar year, find comps, and if they support a lower value, we want to see that. Send that in to us. Call us, email us. We'll get you in touch with the appraiser who's handling your case, and we'll see that they get that information.
We were talking in the office a couple weeks ago about how the real estate market has been. It seems, just from an outside look, from my perspective, things may be slowing down. In my neighborhood, a house could go on sale Tuesday and have the under contract sign up by Thursday. Have you ever seen a market like this before?
I have not, and I think many people have not. I can tell you this, Ross, I did look at the sales that have occurred so far this year, and it's still showing an escalating real estate market. So I would anticipate that we will see more increased assessments next year when we get to this time period. The real estate market, I've always felt, is like turning around a big cruise ship. It takes a while for that body to turn. And I think, yes, there could be a slowdown coming. Interest rates are going up. That might slow things down a little bit. But again, I think that we're going to continue to see higher and higher sales prices.
So when you deal with a market like that, and when we look at how the county workforce has been hit pretty hard by the employment situation across not only Cobb County but the country, we have departments that are 30% vacant in positions right now. How hard is it for your office to do its job with the combination of those two things going on?
It is a challenge. However, we have found some different technology uses that we have been able to employ to make sure that we get done in a timely fashion without sacrificing quality. And we've had a hard time finding employees just like other departments, but most of those employees that we're having a hard time are the ones that are out in the field measuring homes. The ones that are inside working on appeals have been a veteran workforce, and they've been with us for a number of years.
I think I told you I've had personal experience meeting your people in the field. He was a very nice guy, I will say this. Comes knocking at your door and you're like, oh gosh, here we go. But like you said, you got to do what you got to do.
That's right. It's what the law requires, and the individuals that come out to the home, they're not there to set a value that day on the property. They're just there to make sure that the data is correct and that we have everything measured appropriately. Yeah, we certainly understand when someone is upset because they're going to have to pay more in property tax. And we understand that there's a number of decisions that go into that. It's not just Cobb County, it's the school system, Cobb school system, Marietta school system. There are other jurisdictions that make decisions that go into the tax bill. But we always go back to what is our job at the assessor's office. It's to make sure that we put the fair market value on the property. That's what we are employed to do. That's what we're responsible to do. And the law requires that we put the fair market value on that property.
Stephen White is Cobb County's chief appraiser. Thanks for stopping by my office today.
Thank you, Ross. Appreciate the time.